Hey my friends, welcome back to a new video. Today we'll be talking about why they're so afraid of you when you're being yourself, when you're noticing that other people are being triggered by you being yourself, why all of that is happening. And the answer is there's nothing wrong with you. Every time you choose to truly embody yourself, to be authentically you, there's nothing wrong with you. Actually be proud of yourself. It's also a sign of incredible growth you've been through and healing you've been through. So at this point you can authentically stand for yourself, stand in truth, and stand in energy that is yours, that is authentically yours. But why other people are scared of it? It's because, everyone is a reflection. Life is like a one great mirror. And other people are reflections of something that's within you, but also you are reflecting to them something that's within them, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes suppressed, sometimes a cause of insecurity or self-doubt, and that's why their first reaction is usually fear or a sense of being triggered. So what to do when all of that happens? Well, ask yourself always, what is your task? What is your task? Is your task like caring what they say, what they do, how they respond? And if it triggers you, well, still reflect on that and how could you approach these situations. But know that most of the time when something like that happens, it's because you awaken a sense of insecurity or self-doubt in that certain specific person. Well, sometimes you being authentic makes others feel insecure about their own perceived shortcomings. So, for example, think about it. When you meet someone whom you would be admiring in the past and you would say, oh, that person is so confident. Maybe at some point in your past you felt insecure when you've met someone who was so confident. But today, as you're embodying your authenticity, being yourself, you're not admiring this thing so much anymore. You may still admire, you have a respect for it, but you don't feel insecure because of that anymore. Because, when you don't pretend to be someone else, you become confident. But also confidence is like a practice, like a muscle. More you expose yourself to events where you're not so confident about, you grow in confidence. So to those of you who are already quite confident in your skin, you've done the work and that's something you can be proud of, and that's why you don't feel so insecure anymore, right? So when your presence triggers someone, it's because they haven't done the work, and it is nothing wrong with you if other people are not doing their work. So just move on and ask yourself, what is my task here? There's a beautiful concept that says task management, and it can actually help you to save a lot of your worries. Like, what is your thing? In any relationship, your task is to be yourself, to express yourself, to be respectful, to be honest, to be maybe open-minded to the right degree, open-hearted, compassionate when it's necessary. But it's not your task to worry how other people respond, to worry what other people say. And once you understand that, you completely embody your unique, authentic energy. Then another reason why they're so scared or triggered when you're being authentic is that many of these people may start worrying about their own flaws while noticing you being so confident maybe, or so courageous. They may say, oh, that person is so much better than me, and they feel triggered when they notice you. So sometimes they feel inferior beside you, and some people have this coping mechanism that every time they feel inferior, they make themselves superior and become quite narcissistic. So when it happens to you that people around you become narcissistic just because you're being yourself, it's because you've triggered something within them, a certain fear or a sense of rejection from their past, which means that you've actually allowed them to notice something that they couldn't notice before, so they can go through a process of healing. From soul level, it's a very healing process, but from a human level, it's sometimes quite annoying and painful. So make sure that you are not too emotional about it. If something like that happens, just move on, maybe reflect on it a little bit, because if their reaction is triggered to you, then you can still do some healing there and notice, oh, what part of me was triggered? Is there still some fear around this kind of response, like what they think, what they say? And just reflect on that. Then another reason why they may be triggered by your authenticity can be that they have many unresolved issues, and again, insecurity, so unresolved personal issues. They haven't fully resolved what they've been through, their childhood traumas, their relationships or relationship traumas, or anything that's connected to their own fear, to their own struggle, to their own challenges, and they may see you as someone who's thriving, someone who's proud and courageous and happy. And maybe this happiness may trigger them. It happens many times, like you are just being you, being happy, being like very fine, and it's just a trigger to someone, like how that person can be so happy, what's wrong with me? Or there must be something wrong with them that they're so happy. Like if I'm not happy, I don't want anyone to be happy. Sometimes it's like for people who are very, very deep in misery, they may think this way, and therefore when you're being authentic or when you speak your truth, they're like, how can you do that? And they feel triggered. So just understand that, again, it has nothing to do. You're actually teaching them what else is possible to make out of life when you go through healing, when you're being yourself. Actually, it takes a lot of courage, and you know that. If you've come to this level, you know that it takes a lot of courage to be authentic, to be yourself, to speak your truth, to be honest, and also to be vulnerable to such a degree that you're willing to say what lays in your heart, and you have courage to be happy. Like, actually, happiness requires courage, because it doesn't mean that your life is perfectly well, but you can still find reasons to be happy. You can still find reasons to be grateful. And for those of you who have achieved this kind of a state, well, congratulations, because you've done the work, and it can be a trigger for many people who are not willing to do the work. So many times when people are being triggered by your own authenticity, it's because they are not doing the work, they're not doing the healing. And healing is not a pleasant journey, it's actually a very painful, very challenging journey many times, because we need to deal with our own sorrow, we need to go through our own flaws, and we need to admit to ourselves, being honest with ourselves. What's the pain that's holding us back? And what's this source of frustration that I'm projecting then onto others? And you need to then have this honor conversation with you to get to the root of any kind of situation. Not many people are willing to do that, or to find a therapist, or to find a coach, to find someone with whom they can have this kind of deep conversations. And because they're avoiding all of that, they feel triggered, because they notice inside of you that they're not doing the work, and there is something to work on, and they are avoiding it. So every time they see you being authentic, you're like a trigger for them, because they know they should do something like that as well, so they would feel as free as you're feeling. So again, on a human level, it sometimes feels to them like a competition, but actually you're being an example. So every time you trigger someone, when someone triggered you, you know that firstly it was painful, then it was confusing, but if you've done the work, it became liberating. That's why each trigger turns into confusion. Confusion can turn into clarity if you take time with it and sit with it and maybe write about it, reflect on it. And clarity turns into freedom, into liberation, because suddenly you know, oh, it's not my problem. It was just something that happened to me and I've made a misconception about something. I've made a false image about something, a false idea about something. It maybe even became a false identity. You thought you are this broken kid, or you thought you are this broke failure, or whatever. But then you've noticed you can learn anything, and now you're not broke anymore, now you're a work in progress. But as I've reminded you before, you're also a work of art, and there's a lot of parts of you that you should appreciate. You should notice, this is my uniqueness, this is my authenticity, and many of you are already at this level where you're noticing yourself, I'm a work of art. I am a work of art, and this design of nature that made me quite well. And you should be proud of for that. Of course, it doesn't mean like there is no space for growth. There's always space for growth. And God made you so you would grow and you would evolve and you would become all that you can be. And therefore, there's always space for expansion. That's why you're still noticing these triggers, like your authenticity triggers others, and then their own reactions may trigger you. So you can notice there's still a lot of work to do here. But at this level, you can only appreciate all these things, right? Then another reason why your authenticity triggers others is because of cognitive dissonance. Well, many people understand the things they want to do, and they also understand what it takes, but most people are never doing that. Most people never put what they know they should do into action. But then they see you, authentic you, and they're like, oh, I could do that as well, but I'm too lazy. Or I could do that as well, but I can't because of this and that and blah, 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 right? So you trigger them. You trigger them because you do what you say that you will do. And again, it's not really, it's not common. It's also not pleasant many times. It's not pleasant because if you've done the healing, if you've done the work, you were not lazy on yourself. You've been sitting down, having these painful conversations with someone, crying, screaming, meditating, being in quietness, doing the inner work, doing the outer work, building a business or whatever it was that led you to your own authenticity. You've done a lot. It takes a lot of effort, of energy, of truth, of honesty. And therefore, you can't afford anymore to say something without doing it, or to think about what you should do without doing it, or at least trying it. Well, other people can still quite understand it, but if they are not embodying that, you will trigger them. And you will only trigger them so a part of you would invite them into this work, into being more truthful with themselves. Sure, you don't need to say anything. Your presence tells enough, right? Your presence tells enough. Then another, reason that your authenticity triggers others is because many people have a fear of vulnerability. Have you noticed that when you become vulnerable with people, some people close down and they kind of step backwards a little bit, like, I don't want to go there. Like, there's something scary there. I don't want you to see what I'm going through. And I understand that. And most probably you understand that as well. We don't want to just open up our vulnerability to everyone. But still sometimes, because you may be so comfortable being vulnerable with others, to certain people it may be quite triggering. So understand again that when people have this triggering response because you're being yourself, know that everyone is, battling their own demons. And some people find a faster way to deal with that. Some people don't have the right tools. Some people don't have the right support, the right mechanisms. And therefore, they don't feel safe. And in my life, I've learned to understand that some people don't feel safe. So if I can notice that, I bring compassion. If possible, I will be compassionate towards them. But sometimes, certain people just, really stand back and feel kind of offended when you open up. So when you notice, you find the comfortable level of conversation and you give love if you can, and then you move on, right? And there's another reason, like sometimes there's a social pressure. Sometimes, certain people lack more social skills than others. And usually authentic people who are unapologetically themselves may be seen as a threat to the status quo, right? Triggering discomfort in others. It happens many times because, most people just want to live a life without change. But when you're being unapologetically yourself, you many times say things that need to be heard, like not just what they want to hear, but you actually say what needs to be heard. And then they're like, oh, who are you to say that? Or what's wrong with you? And all of that. And you just say, well, I needed to say that, goodbye, or whatever. Or, well, if possible, go into the conversation. Let's get to the truth. Let's get to the root. Or whatever. Just know that every time you are being yourself, and if someone is triggered because of that, if someone feels offended because of that, you've actually opened something in them. And you've kind of shaken their, status quo. You've kind of moved something in them. And then it's upon them what they will do with that. Some people will actually heal something. Some people will actually discover something that was undiscovered before for them. They will make unconscious conscious, which will lead them into some personal progress and obviously some interrelationship progress. They will actually become a better version of themselves because of that. And some people will just ignore it and think that you're just a dumbass. You never know, and it doesn't matter. The point is that you're just being yourself. That's the best thing you can do. In certain people, you may, of course, awaken some past traumas, whatever they've been through. But make sure you don't do it out of arrogance, because then you make yourself superior to others and then they have a reason to be triggered. So just remind yourself that authenticity is all you can bring to the table. You don't need to prove to anyone anything. When you're being unapologetically yourself, you've done the best. And then how other people respond to that, it's their problem and their work. So just make sure that you focus on you and you focus on the expression of who you are. Everything else is up on anyone who come across your journey. But still, from all these responses, you can learn to read people better. You can learn to adapt a little bit. Adaptation is actually an act of wisdom. Because you notice, to certain people, you just need to bring it on a little bit differently than to other people. And it's all about adaptation. So notice what fits you, what resonates with you, but don't lower your standards too much just so you would adapt to those who are not willing to do the work. Because then you're on a path of losing yourself, and you don't want to do that. Always ask your heart, what's the right thing to do, and your intuition will guide you. And when your intuition says to you, hey, speak the truth, make sure that you speak it. Make sure that you speak it. When your intuition will say, open up your heart and bring some compassion, this person needs some compassion, this person needs some love, needs some care, well, bring it on. But don't allow it so other people manipulate you because you're too naive. Well, at this point you already know what it means, and you've already found a way to stand for yourself, so congratulations, my friend. I hope you found great value in today's video. I'm sending you lots of love, blessings, and power. Thanks to everyone for joining our Patreon community for more exclusive content, and thanks to everyone for supporting my art in our store, AttractPassion.com, an Etsy store, I Draw My Passion, where you can find all of my art. To any of you who resonate with my paintings, my art, my expression, go and check it out. There's lots of paintings. Some of them will most definitely resonate with you. With that, you're supporting this mission, so thank you so much. And to anyone who would love to work with me one-on-one, I'm also offering coaching, so the link is in the description of this video where you can book a calling, and I'm excited to meet you. Till next time, one love.